The Revenant Program. Chapter 1, The Vessel. The chamber smelled of antiseptic and metal. Behind the glass, the body floated in suspension, veins threaded with luminous fluid that pulsed like faint lightning. To the scientists, it was not a man. It had never been a man. It was a vessel, muscle, sinew, and bone, engineered for endurance, aggression, and obedience. Dr. Alara Kessler stood at the observation console, her hands clenched behind her back. The data scrolled across the screen. Heart rate steady, neural activity low, but responsive. Years of failures had led to this moment. Dozens of corpses lay in Helix Dynamics' shadowy archives, husks of experiments that had burned out before they could be contained. This one lived. The prototype's body was grotesquely perfect. Its muscles bulged unnaturally beneath pale, scarred skin, the result of accelerated tissue growth. Its face was half-formed, as though the sculptor had abandoned the final details, leaving a mask of raw brutality. Steel braces were fused into its joints, to keep it upright within the nutrient bath. Designation? Asked one of the assistants, his voice quivering with both awe and unease. Kessler's eyes narrowed. Vessel 7. The first to survive Stage 3 augmentation. The assistant swallowed hard. They all knew what came next. Vessel 7 was only half complete. Without the parasite, it was nothing more than a blunt weapon, strong, but mindless. Helix Dynamics didn't want strength. They wanted a hunter that could think. Kessler turned to the observation log. Schedule the grafting procedure, tonight. A silence spread across the lab. The parasite had consumed every host they had tested before, tearing through flesh like fire through paper. But if Vessel 7 could survive the union. The lights flickered, as though the building itself shuddered at what was about to be born. And in the tank, Vessel 7's eyes opened, for the first time. Chapter 2, The Parasite. The parasite was not kept in the main facility. It was far too volatile. Deep beneath Helix Dynamics, in a chamber colder than winter stone, the specimen pulsed inside its containment pod. It was small, no larger than a man's forearm, but alive in a way that unsettled every technician assigned to monitor it. Its translucent skin revealed a writhing anatomy. Tendrils coiled and uncoiled, veins of bioluminescence surged like lightning beneath the surface, and a single, tooth-lined aperture flexed as if tasting the air. Dr. Kessler entered the chamber, her steps deliberate, her face a mask of controlled anticipation. The others avoided her gaze. They had all seen what happened when the parasite was introduced to living tissue. Muscle would seize, organs would rupture, and the host would thrash until its skeleton tore itself apart. Yet, if Vessel 7 could withstand it. Kessler stood before the containment pod, her reflection fractured in the curved glass. This, she said, her voice low, is the key. A mind that never tires, a will that never questions, and a predator that never ceases. The assistant beside her shifted nervously. Doctor, the probability of rejection. Is irrelevant, Kessler cut in, her tone sharp as a scalpel. We are not building probability. We are building inevitability. She placed her hand against the glass. The parasite responded instantly, slamming itself forward with startling force, its tendrils splaying wide as if it sensed the warmth of her skin. The pod rattled, and one of the technicians flinched back. Kessler smiled faintly. Hungry. She turned to her team. Prepare the grafting chamber. Vessel 7 will meet its mind tonight. The technicians hesitated, but orders were orders. They dispersed, leaving the room colder than before. The parasite pressed itself against the glass again, and for the briefest moment, its movements slowed, as though it were listening, waiting, anticipating. Far above, in the suspension tank, Vessel 7's eyes remained open, unblinking, locked on a ceiling it had never seen. Its chest rose and fell with mechanical precision, but within those newly opened eyes, a flicker of awareness glimmered. Something was coming. Chapter 3, Awakening. The grafting chamber was a cathedral of steel and shadow. Restraints hung from the ceiling like chains, and surgical arms loomed overhead, tipped with drills, scalpels, and clamps. At the center of the room, Vessel 7 was secured to an upright frame, its limbs bound with hydraulic cuffs, its head locked into a brace of iron and glass. Monitors crackled with steady heartbeats, but the sound was not reassuring. Every scientist in the room knew those rhythms could end in silence the moment the parasite was introduced. The doors hissed open, and Dr. Kessler entered with the containment pod. Inside, the parasite writhed furiously, sensing its proximity to fresh flesh. The assistants exchanged wary glances, but none dared to speak. "Begin," Kessler ordered. The pod lowered into position. A hatch opened above Vessel 7's sternum, where the skin had been surgically parted and reinforced with steel brackets. The opening was raw, pulsing faintly, as though it had been waiting for this very moment. The parasite was released. It slithered from the pod with a wet, tearing sound, tendrils whipping as it hurled itself toward the cavity. Vessel 7 convulsed violently against the restraints, muscles straining with unnatural force. The parasite burrowed inward, its tendrils wrapping around organs, piercing nerves, threading itself through the creature's very being. One monitor spiked, then another. Heart rate doubled, then tripled, then flatlined, before surging back again in a rhythm that was not human. "Hold it steady," shouted one of the technicians, panic edging his voice. The restraints groaned under the pressure. Vessel 7's body twisted unnaturally, its bones cracking, its chest heaving as if something inside were clawing for escape. And then, stillness. For a heartbeat, the room was silent, save for the ragged breathing of the staff. Vessel 7's head hung low, its chest rising and falling in slow, steady rhythm. The parasite's glow pulsed faintly beneath the skin, as though it had woven itself into every vein. Dr. Kessler stepped forward, her voice calm, reverent. "Do you see it? Integration. Perfection." Vessel 7's head lifted. Its eyes, once dull and vacant, now burned with an unnatural light. The restraints trembled. A low, guttural sound rumbled from its throat, not language, but intent, raw, violent intent. The scientists froze. The monitors screamed with activity. And, for the first time, Vessel 7 smiled. Chapter 4, First Mission. The restraints were reinforced 3 times before the staff dared to leave Vessel 7 unobserved. Its awakening had shaken even the most hardened technicians, and though the official logs spoke of successful integration, the tremor in their voices told a different story. Kessler, however, was radiant. She circled the frame, studying every line of muscle, every glow of bioluminescence beneath the skin, every twitch that betrayed the parasite's restless hunger. Where her team saw danger, she saw destiny. It smiled, whispered one of the assistants, too softly to be part of the record. Kessler turned her head sharply. "No," she corrected, her eyes gleaming. "It recognized us." Vessel 7 tilted its head within the brace, unblinking, as though listening. Its chest rose with deliberate control, each breath a measured rhythm. The parasite had not just merged with the body, it had taught it how to be still. The silence in the chamber stretched long, until an alarm pinged on the upper console. "Transmission from Helix Dynamics headquarters." "Dr. Kessler," said the voice over the intercom, crisp and cold. "The board is impatient. A live demonstration is required. Deploy the subject at once." Gasps rippled through the staff. Deploy it. Into the city. They had barely confirmed it could breathe without the nutrient bath. But orders from the board were never requests. Kessler straightened, her decision already made. Prepare the transport. The containment vehicle was built like an armored cathedral, its walls lined with shock-absorbing alloys, its restraints engineered to hold titans. Vessel 7 stood inside, secured but unflinching, its gaze fixed on the reinforced doors ahead. Through the slit of the control booth, the staff watched in uneasy silence. The parasite's glow throbbed faintly beneath its skin, casting patterns like veins of molten fire. It made no sound, yet every person present felt its awareness pressing against them, measuring, memorizing. Target coordinates? Kessler asked. The reply came without hesitation. Sector 12. Quarantine zone. Survivors confirmed. The assistants exchanged horrified glances. Survivors. This was not a hunt for control, it was a culling. A test. The doors clanged shut, sealing Vessel 7 inside. The transport rumbled forward, carrying Helix Dynamics' masterpiece into the night. Inside the chamber, Vessel 7 closed its eyes. It could hear the parasite whispering now, not in words, but in impulses, urges, instincts. The city beyond was calling. Flesh, movement, prey. The smile returned. And, as the transport thundered toward the quarantine zone, the world outside had no idea that its predator was already awake. Chapter 5. The hunt begins. The transport rolled through the ruined streets of Sector 12, its armored wheels grinding over shattered concrete and abandoned cars. Floodlights cut through the darkness, illuminating crumbling storefronts, broken glass, and graffiti scrawled in desperate hands, "Help us." Still alive. Inside the containment bay, Vessel 7 stirred. The parasite pulsed beneath its skin, urging, whispering. Every jolt of the transport seemed to sync with its heart, until it no longer felt like a prisoner but a predator stalking from within a cage. Arrival in 2 minutes, the driver reported, his voice tight. Kessler stood behind him, her hands clasped, her eyes never leaving the monitor that displayed Vessel 7's vitals. "Open the gates the moment we reach the perimeter," she said calmly. No hesitation. The board demands results. 2 blocks away, in the hollow shell of an apartment building, 3 survivors huddled in the dark. A woman named Marin clutched her younger brother, keeping him close to the flicker of a candle shielded by a jar. The other, an ex-firefighter named Torres, leaned against the window frame, peering through a crack at the deserted street below. "They won't come," Marin whispered, her voice trembling. "No one's coming to get us out." Torres didn't look back. His face was gaunt, scarred with soot from the fires that had gutted half the block. "Someone will," he muttered, though he didn't believe it. He had seen what the quarantine really meant. They weren't waiting for rescue, they were waiting for erasure. The ground trembled. Marin froze. What was that? Torres pressed closer to the window. In the distance, floodlights flared. A massive vehicle roared into the zone, its silhouette unnatural against the ruined skyline. He had heard whispers of Helix's experiments, monsters bred in secret, but he had never believed them. Not until now. The transport ground to a halt. The rear doors groaned open, spilling pale light into the ruins. Vessel 7 stood still for a moment, towering in the shadows, its restraints falling away with hydraulic hisses. The air itself seemed to recoil from its presence. "Release complete," a technician's voice stammered over the comms. Vessel 7 stepped into the night. It inhaled deeply, the parasite's glow brightening beneath its skin, as if the city itself had fed it. Its head tilted, listening. There, faint heartbeats, quickened breaths. "Pray." The smile returned. Torres grabbed Marin's arm, his voice hoarse. "We need to move. Now." She clutched her brother tighter, tears streaking her face. "What is it?" Torres swallowed, staring at the massive figure emerging from the light, its eyes burning like coals in the dark. "Not what," he whispered. Who? And as Vessel 7's first roar shattered the silence of Sector 12, the survivors scattered into the labyrinth of the ruins, knowing the hunt had already begun. Chapter 6, Predator and Prey. The night split open with the sound of tearing steel. Vessel 7's roar echoed through the streets, not animal, not human, but something in between, a declaration of hunger. Windows rattled. Pigeons burst from rooftops in frantic wings. The ruins of Sector 12, silent for days, came alive with terror. Vessel 7 advanced slowly, every step deliberate. Its body moved with unnatural precision, the parasite's glow pulsing in time with its heartbeat. It did not search blindly, it listened. Behind crumbling walls, beneath broken beams, every human breath rang out like a beacon. The parasite urged, closer, closer, closer. Inside the ruined apartment, Torres shoved open a back stairwell door, waving Marin and her brother inside. Their footsteps pounded down rusted stairs, each clang echoing like a drumbeat. Quiet. Torres hissed. It'll hear us. Marin's grip on her brother's hand tightened until her knuckles turned white. The boy whimpered, and she pressed a trembling finger to his lips. Above them, heavy footsteps shook the building. Plaster rained from the ceiling. The monster had already found their trail. Vessel 7 stopped at the stairwell door. Its massive hand pressed against the rusted frame, feeling the vibrations. Behind the steel, hearts raced, two quick, one smaller, weaker. The parasite seethed with anticipation, its tendrils coiling beneath the skin, urging Vessel 7 to strike. Instead, it paused. It tilted its head, considering. This was not hunger alone, it was a test. And tests required patience. The monster gripped the stairwell door and tore it from its hinges. The survivors tumbled into a maintenance hall at the bottom of the stairs, breathless, terrified. Torres grabbed a length of pipe from the floor, gripping it with shaking hands. Keep running, he barked. I'll hold it off. Marin spun toward him, her eyes wide with disbelief. You can't fight that thing. Torres glanced at her brother, then back at her. His jaw tightened. Maybe I can slow it down. The words had barely left his lips when the stairwell above exploded. Shards of steel and concrete cascaded into the hall as Vessel 7 dropped through the wreckage, landing in a crouch. Its eyes glowed in the dark, locked on the three of them. Torres raised the pipe. His hands shook, but his stance was firm. He had fought fires, collapsed buildings, chaos itself. But never this. Go. He shouted. Marin dragged her brother down the hall, tears streaking her face. The boy cried out, but she covered his mouth, pulling him into the shadows. Torres swung the pipe. It cracked against Vessel 7's chest with the sound of breaking bone. The monster didn't flinch. It straightened, head tilting again, almost curious. Then, with terrifying calm, it caught the pipe mid-swing, twisted it from Torres's hands, and hurled it aside. The parasite pulsed beneath its skin. The test was nearly complete. Vessel 7 reached for him. Chapter 7, The Chase. Torres stumbled, barely avoiding the massive hand that smashed through the hall where he had stood. Concrete and debris showered around him, and he scrambled to his feet, heart hammering, lungs burning. The pipe lay shattered at his side, useless against the relentless force behind him. Vessel 7 moved with terrifying precision. Each step measured, each motion deliberate. The parasite pulsed beneath its skin, feeding on the fear radiating from the humans, sharpening its focus, refining its hunt. It had learned quickly, survival demanded efficiency. Marin pulled her brother through a collapsed doorway, pressing him into a narrow crawlspace beneath a fallen beam. She dared not look back. Every instinct screamed that the monster would find them. Above, The heavy footsteps of Vessel 7 echoed in the corridors, a slow, methodical drumbeat that was impossible to outrun, yet impossible to ignore. Vessel 7 paused in the hall. Its head tilted, scanning the wreckage, sensors active. The parasite's tendrils twitched beneath its skin, nudging neural pathways, urging it to adapt, anticipate. There was no panic, no distraction. Just calculation. A predator in its purest form. It had learned the sounds of the survivors, quick breaths, shuffling feet, the faint whine of a candle flame disturbed. It advanced toward them, each step silent now, as if the city itself had softened for its passage. Marin's arm scraped along sharp metal, and her brother whimpered. She pressed herself flat against the floor, holding him still. Shish. Be quiet, she whispered. But silence could not shield them. A shadow fell across the crawlspace, a mass of muscle and horror bending around the beam. Vessel 7's glowing eyes pierced the darkness. It knew where they were. It reached out. Marin froze. The world seemed to slow, the pulse of the parasite echoing in her ears, a rhythm she could feel more than hear. The monster's hand brushed past the beam. Close. Too close. Then it paused. Its head tilted again. Learning. Observing. Calculating. It was not just hunting, it was understanding. Torres had managed to reach a stairwell that led to the street above. He glanced over his shoulder. The corridor behind him was littered with splintered doors and broken ceilings, and the faint glow of Vessel 7's bioluminescent veins cut through the smoke like a predator's lantern. Keep moving. He shouted to the others, desperation fueling his legs. Marin crawled out first, dragging her brother behind her, and they emerged into the open street. The city around them was silent but for the rumble of the transport's departure and the distant sirens of a quarantine zone left to collapse into chaos. Vessel 7 followed. Not running, walking with cold, unstoppable certainty. Every sense trained, every step calculated. The parasite whispered commands. Hunt. Track. Kill. And it would. The survivors ran, weaving through overturned cars, across rubble, and past shattered storefronts, but the predator's shadow followed. And in the night, Sector 12 had learned a new sound, the rhythm of inevitable terror, measured in steps and the steady pulse of the Revenant within. Chapter 8, Strategic Hunt. Marin led her brother down an alleyway littered with overturned dumpsters and jagged rubble, each step careful, measured. She tried to slow her breathing, to make herself small, quiet, invisible, but every instinct screamed that it was already too late. Torres moved ahead, scanning intersections, watching for any shadow that might hide the creature. He had fought fires, storms, chaos itself, but this was something different. Something deliberate. Something that learned. Vessel 7 paused at the entrance to the alley. Its glowing eyes scanned, calculating. The parasite pulsed beneath its skin, feeding on the survivors, fear, adapting, strategizing. It understood patterns now, the sounds of scuffed shoes, the faint metallic jingles of scattered debris. It did not rush. There was no need. Patience was a weapon far sharper than speed. The monster's head tilted, observing the alley's twists and turns. The survivors had fled predictably. It had followed them here deliberately, learning how they moved, anticipating their instincts. A low, guttural sound rolled from its chest, almost a chuckle, almost a growl. Hunger, yes, but now mixed with comprehension. Marin's hand shook as she clutched her brother. Torres. We can't keep running forever. We'll find a place to hide, he said, though his voice betrayed the truth. They had no idea what they were up against. Above, on the broken rooftops, Vessel 7 moved with silent grace. Its massive form bent through shadows, adapting to the terrain, calculating leaps and distances with inhuman precision. It was no longer just a brute force of destruction, it was a hunter, anticipating, reacting, learning. It stopped momentarily, listening. The parasite's whispers grew urgent. They hide. I will flush them. Then it acted. A trash bin toppled with a deafening crash, the sound amplified in the narrow alley. Marin froze. The boy whimpered. Torres spun toward the noise, and the monster was already there. Not charging, not striking blindly, but emerging from the shadows, eyes glowing, tendrils twitching beneath its skin. The survivors scattered. Vessel 7 chose its path carefully, cutting off escape routes, hurting them with precise steps rather than raw force. Every move was deliberate, measured, designed to isolate. The parasite thrummed, teaching the host more than instinct. Tactical thinking. Anticipation. Adaptation. Marin and her brother ducked into a collapsed building, breath ragged, hearts racing. Torres barred the doorway with a rusted beam. We have to keep moving, he urged. From the shadows, Vessel 7 observed. It had learned patience. It had learned strategy. And it would win. The hunt had become more than survival. It had become an education, for both predator and prey. And in the ruins of Sector 12, the predator's lesson had only just begun. Chapter 9, Cornered. The survivors stumbled through the ruins, their breaths ragged, hearts hammering in unison. Every corner held shadow, every alley threatened collapse, and every sound sent a shiver down their spines. Marin clutched her brother, pulling him over debris, praying they wouldn't run straight into the monster. Torres led the way, eyes darting, muscles tense. They had been running for what felt like hours, but Vessel 7 had been with them every step, silent, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment. Vessel 7 paused on a high ridge, surveying the crumbling cityscape. The parasite thrummed beneath its skin, sending subtle, precise impulses. It had learned patterns, understood instinct. The humans were predictable, they ran in fear, split up, hid in shadows. Small errors. Vulnerabilities. It smiled. Not a human smile, not one of joy, but a predator's recognition of opportunity. It did not rush. It did not charge blindly. It chose its approach, methodical, silent, each step measured to manipulate and corner its prey. The creature descended from the ridge, using debris as cover, forcing the survivors toward a narrow passage between collapsed buildings. Marin froze as Torres signaled her. This way. He hissed, leading them through the narrow passage. But the predator was faster, smarter. Vessel 7 anticipated the turn, slipping silently through a collapsed doorway ahead, blocking their escape. The parasite pulsed with satisfaction. It had learned more than movement, it had learned strategy. Torres swung a metal pipe at the figure, desperate, but the blow barely grazed the monster's shoulder. Vessel 7 sidestepped with preternatural awareness, its tendrils quivering beneath the skin as if tasting the air around them. Marin and her brother pressed against the wall, trapped, terror rooting them in place. Run! Torres yelled, and they did, sliding past him into the narrowest part of the corridor. The corridor ended at a dead end. Rubble blocked the walls, and the only exit was a small stairwell leading to a broken rooftop. Marin's chest heaved, her brother whimpered. Torres cursed under his breath. Vessel 7 paused at the bottom of the stairwell. It did not advance immediately. It observed, learned, and adjusted. The parasite pulsed like a heartbeat amplified 100-fold, sending instructions through its host. Force them. Limit options. Predict. With a single, deliberate motion, it lunged, not to strike blindly, but to cut off the survivors' path entirely. The narrow corridor echoed with the sound of metal scraping against rubble. Marin screamed as the monster's hands slammed near them, debris spraying everywhere. They scrambled upward, the sound of footsteps behind them matching the rhythm of their own panicked hearts. Vessel 7 adapted instantly. It split its approach, using one massive hand to block the stairwell exit while the other tore away fragments of concrete to create barriers, channeling the survivors' path toward its waiting reach. It was no longer a simple predator. It was a strategist. And in the dim light of the ruined city, the survivors realized they were no longer fleeing, they were being herded. The parasite pulsed again, sending a singular command: end this. Chapter 10, The Endgame. Marin's hands shook as she pushed the debris aside, creating a narrow path for her brother to slip through. Torres followed, scanning every shadow, every corner, every possible threat. Their lungs burned, their legs ached, but fear sharpened every sense. Above them, the rooftop offered the only hope of escape. The city stretched endlessly, dark and shattered, a maze of ruin. But Vessel 7 was already there. The monster's glowing eyes appeared at the edge of the stairwell, measuring, calculating. The parasite pulsed beneath its skin like a drumbeat, sending impulses through the creature's mind. Analyze. Adapt. Predict. It did not rush. Patience was a weapon, and the survivors had given it all the time it needed. Marin paused, gripping her brother tightly. Torres. We can't outrun it forever. Torres's jaw tightened. Then we fight smart, not hard. Let's lead it somewhere it can't corner us. The survivors ducked into a crumbling building, climbing to the roof as Vessel 7 advanced methodically. The monster moved with terrifying grace, not mindless brute force. Every step was calculated to push them toward the edge. From above, the city seemed silent, but the monster's awareness was everywhere. It sensed the vibrations in the floorboards, the heat of their bodies, even the faint scent of fear. Each pulse of the parasite refined its understanding of its prey. On the rooftop, Marin's brother whimpered. She held him close. Torres peered over the edge, seeing the streets far below. There was no clear escape. They were trapped. Vessel 7 appeared at the stairwell entrance, eyes glowing like molten coals. It did not charge blindly. Instead, it spread its stance, forcing them toward a corner of the rooftop. The parasite's whispers guided every motion, teaching the host precision, patience, and strategy. Torres made a split-second decision. He grabbed a rusted beam, using it to create a makeshift barricade across the edge of the roof. Marin shouted, dragging her brother toward it. Vessel 7 paused, tilting its head. It analyzed the obstacle, the limited space, the human's fear. Then it acted, not with raw strength, but with adaptation. One massive hand smashed the beam aside. Rubble and dust rained over the edge. The survivors stumbled, hearts pounding. For the first time, Vessel 7's voice, or something like it, escaped its throat, a guttural, resonant growl that vibrated through the air. It was not just hunger, it was understanding. It had learned, adapted, and evolved in moments that had felt like hours. The parasite pulsed with finality. End this. Vessel 7 lunged. Torres pushed Marin and her brother aside, taking the brunt of the strike. The monster's massive hand smashed the ground where he had stood, sending dust and rubble into the night. Marin and the boy scrambled over the edge, falling into the alley below, narrowly avoiding death. Vessel 7 roared, the sound echoing across the ruins, a victory and a warning. It did not pursue the jump. They were alive, for now, but it had proven its dominance, its intelligence, its absolute efficiency as a hunter. Marin clutched her brother, gasping for breath, looking back at the rooftop where the monster stood like a dark sentinel. The city was silent once more, but the threat lingered. Vessel 7 had learned, and it would continue to learn. The parasite pulsed beneath its skin, steady, relentless, eternal. And the Revenant was awake. The hunt had only just begun.